Hey there! This video is all about how to get more runtime on your Canon R5C. And yes, this is real. You will get an extra 50% runtime in 4K 24 on the new Canon LP-E6P batteries as opposed to the older LP-E6 and H batteries. And before we get into it though, I just want to mention that there are affiliate links in the description for the new LP-E6P batteries. I really highly recommend that you try to find them whenever possible because at the time of recording this, they're back ordered. And I have a feeling when people find out that the new batteries are really helpful for the Canon R5C, they're going to be hard to get. So again, if you could use the affiliate links down below, it would be greatly appreciated to both help me and the channel out. So thanks. Okay, like I said, this is real, and I am going to give you a bunch of examples of runtime tests and why I think these new batteries are giving us this increased performance. So about the runtime tests, I can't test every mode out there because it would just take forever. But I think that what I tested with the new LP-E6P battery in a couple different modes will give us a really good sense of the increased performance. So I can't give you runtimes about every possible situation in all different modes and all that kind of stuff. But like I said, what I will share with you right now will give you a good sense of what's going on with these new batteries. So for the runtime tests, I shot everything in the 4K 24 frames per second and 4K 60 frames per second, not in SNF mode. I also used the XF AVC long GOP codec with the fan speed set to low, the LCD screen luminance at 0. I'm recording to a CF Express Type B card internally in the camera. I use the RF 15 to 35. With this lens, I also had the autofocus and the lens stabilization engaged. I did not have any digital stabilization on in the camera. So of course, with different settings and modes and stuff like that, you will get different runtimes, but I just want to give you the baseline for what I got here. I also want to say that I used all OEM brand Canon batteries, so the LP-E6P battery, the LP-E6NH battery. I also charged these with OEM Canon battery chargers. Also, at the time of recording this, I am using firmware 1.0.7.1 on the R5C. So for most of the runtime tests on the R5C, I had the power saving mode turned off. I will talk about power saving mode turned on a little bit later, but I wanted to see first how it did with the power saving mode off. So the first test is sort of our baseline is the 4K 24 and the XF AVC, and this was with the new LP-E6P battery. It ran for 1 hour and 32 minutes before shutting off with continuous runtime. And comparing this with the 4K 24 with the older LP-E6 and H battery, it only ran for 1 hour and 2 minutes. The hour and 2 minutes, or roughly an hour of runtime on the 4K 24 with the LP-E6 and H battery is pretty consistent from what I've seen in the past. And right away, you can see that this is a large increase in performance with the new battery, giving us roughly 50% more battery life, going from an hour to about an hour and a half. That's a big deal. So let's talk about 4K 60. When I tested 4K 60 out with the new battery, it ran for 57 minutes. And when I compare this with the 4K 60 with the older battery, I only got 31.5 minutes. That is a very large increase, not quite double, but significantly more than 50%. And so we're getting huge gains here in runtime in both 4K 24 and 4K 60. So the next question that I went to right away, and probably you're thinking right now, is, well, what about power saving mode? Because that could increase the runtime even longer. But this is really interesting. So when I ran 4K 24, same exact settings and everything as before with the new battery and the power saving mode turned on, I only got 1 hour and 30 minutes. This is essentially the same as the non-power saving mode with the new battery because hour 30, hour 32, that's within the margin of error for me. So it's really interesting that you don't get longer runtimes with power saving mode. I do have a theory about this, and a little bit later I will explain about why I think all this is going on, and the power saving mode actually helps us understand this. All right, let's talk about the specs of these two batteries. So both batteries have 2,310 milliamp hours, 16 watt hours, and 7.2 volts. And if you look at the batteries, they have the same physical size and design and all that. So these batteries actually have the same amount of power, right? Watt hours. So what's the difference here between these batteries? That's where I had to do some research. So I went online and I looked around and I started on the Canon USA page and basically didn't have very much information about the specifications. It said rechargeable high amperage lithium ion battery. Well, that doesn't tell me much. So I started looking around a little bit more and actually found some information on the Canon Asia page because there wasn't anything on Canon USA. And it did say that the LP-E6P is a successor to the LP-6NH, which is used in many existing cameras. Despite having the same capacity, the LP-E6P has a higher maximum continuous discharge of 6 amps, allowing for higher performance and functionality in newer cameras like the EOS R5 Mark II and onwards. It also says that it has 2,130 milliamp hours and 6 amps. So that was interesting. So I went and looked at the LP-E6NH page on the Canon USA site, and it just said 2,130 milliamp hours, but it didn't say 6 amps. So there's a difference here in the high discharge performance of the LP-E6P batteries. I think this is really where the difference is. So these two batteries are essentially the same, but the one difference here is the fact that the new battery has that higher amperage output. I think a big part of this discussion is going to be the power saving mode. And you're probably wondering why with the new battery, shooting in power saving mode is the same as shooting with the power saving mode turned off. So quick reminder about power saving mode, in case you don't know about this, it was introduced in a firmware update a little while ago. When you put the R5C in power saving mode, it limits some of the functionality of the camera. Specifically, you can't shoot in RAW or 8K compressed. SNF in all intra, you can't increase the luminance of the LCD and viewfinder. You can't use and power external devices like the Tascam XLR unit, for example. So if you've ever used an R5C before, you probably know this, but when the battery dies in the video mode with the power saving mode turned off, you can flip the camera over to stills mode and you still have battery life left there. It always shows a couple of bars on the battery icon and you think, why is there half a battery left on the stills mode when I can't run the video mode? So this has always been really perplexing and confusing and frustrating for me and probably a lot of you out there as well. So I think when we talk through some of this stuff, you'll kind of understand why that's the case and why we're getting these runtimes and stuff like that. So this is just my theory about what's going on. But I do think that the new LP-E6P's higher maximum continuous discharge of 6 amps is the reason. So every camera has a minimum amperage draw that it needs from its battery source to run. And I believe that the cinema operating system needs a higher amperage than the stills mode in this camera or in the stills or video modes in the other mirrorless cameras like the R5, the R6, etc. So when you are running with the new battery, as the power starts to go down in the battery, as you deplete the energy in the battery, it still maintains that higher amperage to run the cinema operating system. So it'll actually let the operating system run all the way until there is not enough energy in this battery to run it anymore. Similarly, when we run the camera in the power saving mode with the old battery, what I think it's doing is it's of course limiting some of the functionality of the camera, like we talked about the higher luminance values on the screen EVF, 8K, RAW, all the external devices, all that stuff. And basically it lowers the amount of amperage that the camera needs to run in the cinema operating system. So as the old battery starts to die, once it crosses that threshold of where it doesn't have enough amperage to run the camera anymore, the battery is dead. So that's where I think they figured out where the power saving mode works. And that's why we're getting basically the same runtime with the new battery and the old battery in power saving mode, because they're just two different ways of keeping the camera happy and having enough energy. So with the announcement of the R5 Mark II, there were a lot of people that were upset about having to upgrade their older LP-E6N or LP-E6NH batteries for the new LP-E6P batteries to use in the R5 II to get the full functionality. If you use the older batteries in the R5 Mark II, it limits some of the functionality. Now, I completely get this frustration. It is really annoying to have to go buy a bunch of batteries. They are $80 a piece. I did upgrade all my LP-E6N batteries to the NH batteries when I did upgrade to an R5C. I totally understand that. Now, one thing that I want to get across in this video is how important I feel like this new battery is for the R5C, which is not being talked about. Now, one of the largest complaints about the R5C from me and everyone else out there has been the battery life. And with this new battery, we are definitely getting more battery life in the R5C and a little bit more functionality because we can run it longer in the power saving mode turned off. I do think this brings a lot more life into the R5C, and I think it will be a lot more usable in a lot more situations. I am often rigging up this camera with V-mounts and stuff like that for longer runtimes, but having the flexibility to get an hour and a half of runtime off the internal battery makes this almost comparable to a lot of other mirrorless cameras out there, which is really cool, and it's a lot more manageable now. Now, I do want to give full credit to the person that told me about this, which is Robert Kalick. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that name right. He brought this up during a live stream, and I just wanted to go ahead and test it out and share this with all of you. During the live stream, I also ran the camera with a manual lens, so I wasn't using autofocus or lens stabilizer and that stuff. It ran for about 1 hour 40 minutes during the live stream, so your mileage may vary depending on the kind of situation that you're shooting the camera in, and the fans and the screen brightness and the lenses and all that kind of stuff. But I have to say, this is a big improvement for the R5C. Again, like I said, if you're looking to pick up any of these batteries, please check out the affiliate links down below. There's also links for all the gear they use on a regular basis. Thank you so much for watching. Hit subscribe if you found value in this, and we will see you in the next one.